Welcome back to the Proximity is Power podcast. I'm stoked for today. We have Colton Lindsay in the house.
What's up?
Colton, thanks for coming on, bro.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Thanks for putting this virtual together. Just trying to get the studio thing all together, so we landed here virtually, so that works out good.
Yeah, dude, this is the first virtual podcast, so it's cool. Here's a little bio on Colton for those of you that maybe haven't met him before or heard of him. He's a real estate powerhouse. He started selling real estate, and his first couple years, he sold 75 homes in a single year as a solo agent. He became a top 1% producer by age 28, and now he leads a network of over 3,600 agents with the Real Brokerage. He's also the founder of the WGR Academy, which stands for Winning Greatly in Real Estate. He has trained over thousands of agents to become six-figure earners with top clients making over $300,000 a month. He's internationally recognized speaker, trainer, helping agents scale their business and achieve financial freedom as he has done. Colton, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Let's dive in.
So yeah, me and Colton actually met about a month ago in Canada at Tony Robbins' finance event. So that's how we crossed paths. And you're from Utah, aren't you,
Yeah,
Colton?
I live in Huntsville, so I'm like, are you in
That's right.
Provo? Where is that where you're at?
Yeah, around there, Saratoga Springs.
Yeah, so I'm
So
like an hour and a half north, like just like hour north of Park City on the Wasatch Back is where I live.
heck yeah. And so for those people that haven't met you before, Colin, tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, how you grew up. What was that like?
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town called Clinton, Utah. At the time when I first moved there was like 10,000 people in that town. And yeah, I was just working class parents, great parents. I was almost too comfortable, right? Meaning I always had a new baseball mitt and like I always played little league sports and that, but we weren't rich by any means. And growing up, I thought that if I could make $100,000 a year, I was like crushing it. Like that would be cool. I didn't know how I was going to do it right away. But in the eighth grade, I went on a job shadow with a real estate agent because he drove this was in the 90s. So he drove a red Hummer. I don't know if you remember the old Hummers. And I was like, dude, this guy's got to make a lot of money. He's got a Hummer. That's what I thought, right? So then I graduated from high school, went on a Mormon mission, and I came home and got right into real estate. And I didn't have leads. I didn't know what I was doing. So I went to this training program, and he's like, well, "You got to knock doors and you got to cold call." So that's what I did. I started cold calling. I started knocking doors, and once I hired him, I like as a coach, I sold 20 something homes, and then quickly went on to 75 homes a year in the top 1%. So that's it.
Wow. So you basically got into real estate because you did a job shadow when you were really young, and you're like, this guy's making some money. I could probably figure it out too.
Yeah, well, I had right out of high school, I had two jobs, real jobs, before I went on my mission. I got fired from both of them. Like one job was
Hmm.
after 2 months, I got fired. It was for the public works department, and I got fired because I would go on smoke breaks. I don't smoke. I never have smoked, but I saw other workers do smoke breaks, and so my boss is like, "Why are you taking a smoke break?" I was like, "Because everyone else is," and he's like, "But you
Yeah.
don't smoke." And so, anyways, they ended up firing me. I was like, "What? I don't get a smoke break just because I don't smoke? That's not
Yeah,
fair, right?"
that's dumb. That's hilarious.
And my other job was with ZDD, which was a airbag company at Autoliv. So I would basically inspect airbags. I was the last guy on the assembly.
Really?
Worst job of my life. I got fired in 1 week. It was the worst job ever. And I realized at that point I just couldn't have regular jobs. Like I needed to get into doing something for my own.
Wow. That's really cool. Testing airbags. I've never heard of anyone doing that. That's crazy.
I didn't have to actually test it. I just had to look at it and make sure that they were like
Huh.
the visual inspection. So it was, yeah,
That's wild.
so boring.
So, and then where'd you serve your mission?
I was in Brazil.
How was that?
It was awesome. Yeah, it was honestly 2 super great years.
Was it Rio?
No, I was down south in a town called Santa Maria. So it was like very, very bottom of the country.
Heck yeah. So you get back and college isn't even on your radar, or did you go to college?
I did go to college, but I hated it. So I had done a year before, And then because I spoke Portuguese on my mission, took two classes. One was like the highest Spanish class and one was the highest Portuguese class. So I got like 90 credit hours in one semester. Like it was insane because I could go through that and then count all the ones before. So I
Makes sense.
graduated super fast. I graduated what's called professional sales now. It was technical sales then. So it was a sales degree. And I only went to college because my mom specifically was like, oh, you should go to college. And I didn't know different back then. Like, oh, yeah, you're supposed to go to college. Now, though, I wouldn't go to college.
Wow. Are you glad you did that though? Did you learn a
No,
lot
I
in a
mean,
sales degree?
I learned things that I think were positive, but I would have learned them anyways. I learned faster actually in sales, not just sitting
Hmm.
in a classroom being
Yeah,
taught.
doing it.
Yeah.
So you start going to school and then you immediately get your license basically. Um, I feel like in sales jobs, people are so like excited and see what people can make doing sales, and especially the top 20%, the top 4%, the top 1%, you know.
This gets better.
But yeah, people just don't realize though what it takes to be great, you know?
Hmm.
So what was that first year as a realtor like? Like
The
how hard was it?
first year was horrible. I only sold two houses. One
Wow.
was my sister because she was getting married and bought a house, and the other one was back in the day. There was this thing called floor time where because they didn't have Instagram, didn't have social, like didn't have all the types of websites they have now. And so someone just happened to walk into the office where I was at, and so I got lucky, like super duper lucky. So I didn't know what I was doing. And then about 10 months in, I realized like something's not working. I went to a class and there was this sales trainer coaching real estate coach there. I borrowed money from my sister so I could sign up for his coaching program. And the first thing I did is I just memorized these scripts. Like, because if I'm going to go knock a door or I'm going to cold call someone, I had to know what to say. So I remember getting these exact words and I had them laminated and I would read them all the time and just like master those scripts. I didn't know what I was doing at the point. But what happened is, as I started doing them, I started seeing these patterns with people and I started saying, oh, I noticed if I say this, then they say that. If I do this and so then it just became a fun game where I could
Mm.
it was about getting more yeses. And it was very simple. Like if I talked to X amount of people, I got X amount of appointments. If I went on X amount of appointments, I got X amount of contracts signed. X amount of contracts equaled X amount of dollars. And so then I just figured out how do I talk to more people and how do I go on more appointments?
Wow. Yeah, my friend Jimmy Rex says the secret in sales is learn what to say and then say it all day.
Yes.
And and I feel like so many people, like I love what you said about like so many people start out in any field and suck, right? Like I same thing. Like I started in door to door, I sucked. But the secret that you mentioned is like you were 10 months in, you'd only sold one house. And you're like, I need to go get around people that have done it and go learn from them. And that's like the whole concept of the podcast called Proximity is Power is like how to figure out the how to do something, go get around the who of the
Yes.
people who've done it to go learn and speed up that learning process. I love that.
Right. When you can get a mentor and you can get allies that are cheering you on when things suck and celebrating you when you're doing well,
Hmm.
you'll advance so much faster. I think the majority of salespeople, I don't care if it's door to door, if it's real estate, whatever, they quit because they aren't seeing the fruits of their labor yet, and it gets tough mentally. Like to get rejected, to be told to f off, and to not see the success instantly is very difficult. And so people quit. They just quit too early. And so that's why they don't have success.
Dude, it's so true. It's just like, it's just believing that if they do the inputs consistently for long enough, they'll get the outputs. But so many people are willing to do the inputs, but they don't see the immediate outputs. And so they think it's never going to happen and quit, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I agree completely.
What are the common mistakes you find people like realtors making in your industry?
The biggest thing is they don't talk to enough people.
Hmm.
I heard very early on belly to belly, face to face. And so that's what I tried to figure out how to do. Now, how you do that today is a little bit different in real estate because there's so much more technology and I can be there quicker. Regardless, though, it's the biggest thing is they don't learn or they don't talk to enough people. And the second thing is they don't learn how to talk to them. So I hear people say this, well, oh, scripts aren't for me because that's not who I am. And I'm like, dude, who you are isn't working. right? So like, I wouldn't want to be who you are. So
Yeah.
I recognize that like who I was wasn't working. So I had to change that part. Like I had to change the words I was using. I had to change the tonality. I had to change the tempo. And once I could understand those patterns, I could use them to my advantage.
Hmm. So how did that second year go after getting that training and stuff?
For me, it went great. I did over 20 something deals that year, which was really, really
Wow.
good for me because I was in my early 20s. I was still going to school at that
Yeah,
same.
you next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I went very quickly to 40 something deals. And I specifically focused on what are called for sale by owners and expireds. It's because like
Hmm.
they were raising their hand saying, hey, we're wanting to do something in real estate. So that's where I could get really, really good. And I would just prospect those leads.
Heck yeah, dude. And so you fast forward a little bit, and then was it your fourth year you sold 78?
Yeah, something like that, 4 or 5 years in. Yeah.
Heck yeah. And then what led you to starting your academy, the WGR?
So I believe everyone has an evolution of career. And here's the one thing, like I'm grateful for my sales years. However, I realized I was really a business operator, meaning if I'm not out there doing the sales, I ain't making money. And so I had to go through that and learn it. Like I couldn't just go straight from being an unsuccessful business operator to being a successful business owner. I had to become a successful operator first. That was very important. Then once I figured that out, I was okay, I needed to get to where I made money even when I wasn't working. And I had to move from that phase of my career.
Hmm. Yeah, because I feel like, I mean, I know a couple realtors who, yeah, I mean, you got to start as a business operator. Like, you got to learn the skill, you got to learn how to sell the properties. And then they've kind of transitioned to being more of an owner by hiring assistants, right? But for you, you're like, I want to go teach people how to do what I know how to do really well.
And I did that. I had two assistants. I even built a real
Huh?
estate team. There's
Yeah.
other elements too as I look at what I want for my life. I want low risk and I want low expenses and I want high profit margins. That was
Hmm.
important. Traditional models with real estate, even independent brokerages and teams, it was
Slim margins.
really slim margins. And so the market sneezes and changes and frickin'
Wow.
your profits, right? So you're seeing that today with the real estate industry is real estate teams are just getting their asses handed to them. And the team leaders have to actually sell houses just to pay the overhead for their team. And it's like, well, what?
Wow.
That's actually the opposite of the goal of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, you have to go back into operator mode.
Exactly.
Wow, so you started your business to basically create a way to become a business owner and also help a lot of people in the process by teaching them what you know.
Correct. Yeah. So growth and impact are the two things. And there was some
Uh-huh.
things I wanted from the business I built. One is I wanted location freedom. That was super important to me. I wanted to be able to make 7 figures a year wherever I was on the planet. Second thing I wanted was financial freedom, like where I could take profits from my business and invest in other areas to make me more money. And then the third thing I wanted was I wanted time freedom. Like that was once my kids started to feel like I got a 9-year-old daughter, 12-year-old daughter, 18-year-old stepson, and they have these things they're doing in life. And I didn't want to have to choose between paying attention at the soccer game or negotiating an offer. I didn't, you know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? And there was many times when I was in active sales when my kids were really little. It's like, okay, you either miss out on this thing with your kids because you're going to a listing appointment, or you go, you know what I'm saying? Or you
Or you
miss
don't get the deal. Yeah.
exactly, and you don't get the deal, you don't get paid. So I
Wow.
would oftentimes end up, well, I got to go get this deal done, right? And I see a lot of realtors trick themselves with that. It's like I'm working, I'm doing this for my family. Well, a day becomes a week becomes a month becomes a quarter becomes a year becomes a decade. Next thing you know, they're 5, 10 years in, and the whole reason that they were doing it for in the first place, they've missed out on, and in the name of like working for their family.
Wow. No, dude, that's huge. And I see it all the time. Because, like, as an agent, you're kind of like on call, like a doctor, 24/7, because you never know when someone's gonna want to put an offer in or go see a house or whatever. And you kind of have to be there ready to go for them. So, how do you help agents transition, I guess, into operator to owner mode?
So it depends on what phase of business they're at in their life, because they're at
Hmm.
a lot of agents are still at the phase where they have to just master they're a successful
Their skill set.
first.
Yeah.
And so Well, I've noticed most of the agents that we would choose to work with, they're already closing maybe 10 to 20 deals a year, which is good. It's not
Hmm.
amazing, but it's not the worst, right? Where they suck is managing their database so that they can generate more leads and more referrals and make business easier. And how do they also manage their time to be more effective and efficient? So we help those people, but our really right fit agents that we work with, they're at least making $250,000 a year typically. And they're at that phase where it's like, oh, for me to grow, I need to build a team or something like that. And we actually teach them, don't do that. We teach them how to build a personalized brand online. And from there, how do you
Mm.
monetize the industry differently? And there's three ways we teach people to make money. One is to build national real estate communities. So for example, I can have agents brand agnostic all across the country pay me a part of their deals so that we can help them manage their database. So that's one way that we do it.
Wow.
The second way that I do it is I teach agents how to launch their own courses, their own coaching programs, their own mentorship. Like we have this one of our clients, she's awesome. She's in Boise, Idaho. She just moved from Boise to California, but she makes over 150 grand a month teaching real estate agents how to generate leads on Instagram.
Wow.
There's a huge opportunity in that space because realtors no longer want the traditional way of coaching. They want to learn different things that other successful agents can teach them. So you can actually sell your expertise. Third is revenue share network. So I partner with a real estate tech platform called Real Broker, and we partner with agents in that platform, and then we get a percentage of revenue, and then we get stock awards as well. That's
Wow. Really smart. Really smart. Like instead of scale the team, scale your brand, scale your reach, and then monetize the new technology and adapt and pivot. Really cool.
when it's what I call the democratization of real estate. We're seeing this in any industry. Is I don't have to be limited to just Provo, Utah or Salt Lake City, Utah anymore.
Right.
I get paid on deals in New Jersey, Boise, Miami, like all across the country because I'm focusing on the next level up, which is empowering agents, impacting them to increase their skills, and then I get paid off of those types of deals.
Yeah, you're just adding more value. Wow.
Exactly.
I feel like you're the first realtor I've ever met that's like thinking outside the box. Like it's really cool to see what you're doing. Yeah. So I guess you were making really good money while you're in college, like 20 deals and then 40. Like most people that like get a sum of money more than they've ever seen go blow it. So what was your initial thoughts with finance and what did you kind of do with the money once you started making some money?
I definitely made some horrible mistakes early on.
Bought a Hummer?
I didn't buy a Hummer. But there was a phase of life where I was using a lot of drugs. And so I remember one day, Gage, in the middle of the day, I blew like, it wasn't a ton of money, it was a couple grand doing online
Wow.
gambling. I was doing this thing called Bodog.com, so stupid. And I was like, I was high, and I was like, oh, I could just keep doubling my bet on roulette. And I didn't understand they had max bets, right? I was thinking I was being clever. Anyways, I hit max bet and I lost everything. There
Wow.
was like dumb things like that I do, or when I was single, I'd go to clubs, right? And we'd spend a bunch of money on like the night out on the club. That was a big waste of money. So that was a dumb phase of life for sure.
Um, and then you started investing in real estate. Did that happen right away
Yes, I
or
think the first deal I invested in was 2006. In fact, I'm actually about
wow.
ready to sell that property right now.
Wow. Tell us about that first deal.
Well, so back then there was what was called, I don't know if you've heard of stated loans. So I could just state my income and state that I was employed and they'd give me a loan. So
Wow.
I wasn't making much money because I wasn't very successful that first year in real estate, but I figured I could get a loan even though I wasn't making money. And so I bought a rental property and I just rented that property out. So I actually got paid to buy that property because I paid myself a commission, right? The person I was buying from was an agent that had it listed selling his own property and he paid me a commission on it to buy my own property. So I made
Wow.
money buying that property. And then I just rented it out for the last 19 years or whatever.
Where was that at?
That was in South Ogden, Utah.
How much did you buy it for?
I think I actually paid, which felt like a lot of the time, 50 grand. I'll probably sell it for 190 something. It was higher. It was like 230 grand a couple of years ago, but the market's corrected.
Wow. So, and then did you just keep investing in real estate, like all the profits that you got from your
So that
business?
was the first decade invested most of my money in real estate and silver because that was what I knew. And then I did some spec homes along the way. I did some fix and flips, right? But then my
Hmm.
biggest thing was I realized if I could focus more on my business, selling more houses, I could make more money. So then I didn't get into all the other stuff. I just invested buying more real estate.
Dude, that's the thing is like with every investment, there's a level of passiveness and activeness,
Yeah.
right? I've noticed that and like some things like buying index funds, totally passive, right? Like you transfer the money, you press a button, you buy it, you own the stock or you own the index fund. But with real estate, you gotta find the deal, you gotta manage the deal, you gotta
Yeah, you're
manage the
an
manager.
operating partner in the business for sure.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm noticing is like,
So that's a
yeah,
change I made. If I'm spending time operating a business, which I do right now, I want
uh-huh.
to make sure that whatever I'm doing in the operations actively pays me over and over again. Like I just closed a
Mm.
deal that will pay me 70 grand a year for the next 5 years. So that's 350 grand
Wow.
in 5 years. So I look for those types of deals versus if I just do one real estate deal, even if it's $1 million, I make 30 grand one time. And everyone thinks,
Mm.
oh, you get repeat referral clients. And I agree. But the reality is, do you know how long the average person in Utah stays in their house?
Uh-uh.
20 years. So
Wow.
it's not like they're moving all the time. And
Yeah.
someone's got a 3% interest rate from a few years ago. They're not likely to move anytime soon.
Wow. Tell us about that last deal that you were talking about.
So that's part of the partnership with Real Broker, right? So
Wow.
what my model is we focus on helping real estate agents level up their business or pivot their business to these future models. Because what we saw around 2019, 2020 is the biggest real estate crisis ever. And it really has hit the climax this last year. And the old ways of doing real estate are just fading quickly. You're seeing real estate agents' commissions drop. You're seeing just like it just not working, right? So the biggest people getting hit the hardest are independent brokerages because they can't compete with the speed of technology of big tech firms. So part of what I do is I help independent brokerages partner with us at Real Brokerage and they private label their company. So that specific
Wow.
deal is 55 agents partnering with us. And like 43 of them are what are called capping agents, meaning they're highly productive agents. And so then as we partner them over at Real, our anticipated revenue that gets paid to us as a revenue from my company as a revenue share is $70,000 a year. And we could go longer than 5 years. It's likely it will, but when we project for a 5 year revenue. So it could
Uh-huh.
literally go as long as 10 years. So it could end up being closer to 700,000 over 10 years.
Wow. That's really cool. I think just from listening to you, Cole, and what I've learned kind of, yeah, been thinking about is like, dude, you've just gotten really good at leveraging your time and getting better and better at leveraging your time, like in the bigger opportunities. Like you started out selling real estate, then you got really good at that, and so you got paid more per hour that you put in,
Yes.
right? And then you built a team, so you had more leverage, but then you realized there's still a lot more time and the margins aren't what it could be. Then you started your, academy, and now you have more leverage in that than you did ever selling individually.
Correct. So there's really only four things that I focus my energy on throughout the day. Number one is I do focus on business and money. Like that is a major focus. Number two is my relationships, principally with my spouse and with my family, my immediate family, and also my chosen family, right? So there's some really great chosen family members. Like my best friend Al, like we talk almost every day for at least 30 minutes. He's a business owner. He owns pharmacies there, right? And it's really cool what he's doing. The third thing I focus my energy on is my health, my body, my energy, and really optimizing that. And then the fourth thing that I focus is my spiritual vision and my connection with the divine aid, which right now I found is the biggest gift because how often, and you probably experienced this, where shit's not going your way, and it's easy to stack on like all of these problems that you got to go face, and so it becomes a way to surrender your worries and my concerns to something that's higher than me and really relax me through the expansion of my life. So if it's not that, like even when you asked me to do this podcast, I was more than happy to do it. I'll give you some of my time because I really like you and I think this is great. But I didn't have time to go 90 minutes driving there, do the 1 hour,
Yeah,
90 minutes. But like, 'cause everything is, I'm monitoring how much do I
it's
get,
really smart.
how much do I get paid per hour? And I'm always looking, okay, if I'm doing a minimal dollar per hour task, like here's a super simple example, like mowing my lawn, right? Like I know that seems like a very common thing people leverage out. It's just a good example is I actually make more money having conversations in business than I do mowing my lawn. So I pay someone that $100 a week to come take care of my landscaping, right? So you're constantly looking, how do I leverage my time out for a lower dollar activity so I can spend higher dollar activity?
Yeah, and you nailed it, right? Like becoming more and more valuable to like become more valuable and also know what trade-offs you're making with your time. Like super cool. And I heard something the other day, like the difference between the wealthiest and the top business people in the world and like the worst is they're better at leveraging than the worst. And like the four things you can leverage in business and in finance to get more leverage is capital, code, which is like technology, capital's money obviously, collaboration, and then content. So I feel like you're doing all four of those really well and you're on the top of it. So that's
Yeah,
really cool.
we have two ways with content. We have obviously organic that we create using, I use mainly Instagram.
Uh-huh.
And then I do paid content, which is basically meta ads. So just in the last 2 weeks, I had a meeting today. Our organic content generated around 400 leads, something like that. I don't remember the exact.
Wow.
And so that's what I measure is like how can I generate leads into my business, in my audience. Really, I want to generate audience too. So there's two levels of audience. There's how do I get more followers is one, but the other one I really, really look at is how many people want to opt in and raise their hand and say, I'm interested in hearing more about what you have to talk about.
Wow.
So they request something of value in exchange for a name and an email.
Dude, I used to not want to be on the social media or like the podcast guy or anything like that. But my friend Brendan Turner, you know who that is probably. He was the Bigger Pockets host for a while. But he talked about how like if you have 1 million people that know, like, and trust you, any business that you're in will get bigger. Like anything you're doing will be more maximized because you're leveraging content and you can get more people to see, know, like, and trust you.
And what you're really doing is you're leveraging influence, the ability to influence and persuade others
Yeah.
now this is where it becomes important is that wherever you influence them, it's got to be super meaningful and
Hmm.
impactful. And that's, I think that's a core belief because there's several people here, I mean, in Utah specifically, that have recently been indicted because they took their influence and influenced people the wrong way. And
Hmm.
so you got to make sure, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to see more of those over the next 12 to 24 months because as Trump calls it, the economy's transitioning.
Yeah.
You got look at the stock market. It's correcting right now. Bitcoin is correcting dramatically. The real estate industry is getting its ass whooped the last 24 months, 18 to 24 months. And so as you see that the economy takes this beat down, a lot of these people that were influencing things that worked before the thing stops working, it puts them into these cash challenges, right? So I know one of them was you saw that dude that he's influencing people to purchase like drop shipping things through Amazon. And then like a month after
Yeah.
he did that, then all of a sudden Amazon, Walmart, they block those types of stores. And so
Mm.
these crises pops up. And so you got to make sure whatever you're influencing people into is that it's sustainable, it's impactful. And I look at the future of, okay, it's got to be AI for sure. Something wrong AI, at least in my space, because that's going to crush it in this industry.
Hmm. No, it's true. Like you kind of have like leadership is influence, and if you have influence, like it's like the Spider-Man quote, like with great power comes great responsibility, and like you have a fiduciary like duty to the people that you lead to lead them in the right places in the right direction for
Yeah.
sure.
And if I look at like my specific mission in business is to help real estate agents create time, money, and location freedom. That's the outcome.
Hmm.
And then there's vehicles that we use that can help them create it. I think it's very similar. You're in a similar model minus the right fit client that you have, right?
Yeah.
You want to help these guys that come to you and gals that come to you grow and scale their time, money, and location freedom by I think it's pest control that you guys do, door knocking on,
Huh?
right?
Yeah.
And so you it's very similar, right? Like your real right fit client is people that probably don't believe the traditional ways, rightfully so, and they want to put things in their own hands. And I think door knocking is the fastest way for someone to really learn the skill of business because they get to go learn sales very, very quickly. They get to get grit, they get to get rejected, they get to have long hours, they get to be tested, and their threshold of control expands so rapidly if they don't quit.
Dude, it's so true. And it's so funny because I'll talk to people that are in college studying business or whatever and wanna be entrepreneurs. And I'm like, I tell them about sales and how they could come in a summer, learn, like get a PhD in sales. And they're like, ew, sales, I don't want to do sales door to door. That sounds like it sucks. And it's like, what you don't realize is every business in the world has to sell. If they
Right.
don't sell, they're out of business
Right.
tomorrow.
Sales is the
Like,
fastest way to multiple six figures, and becoming an incredible marketer is the fastest way to multiple seven figures.
wow. I've never heard that before, but it's true. Because the thing about marketing, like, I used to be like, how cool would it be to like run an ad where I don't like run an ad to this neighborhood that I'm knocking? That was so good that I wouldn't even have to touch any of these doors. And there was no way to do that. But now there is with content and social media. And it's like you can just reach way more people. And especially if you get really good at it and, it can go viral. So, no, really cool. One thing I want to jump to. So, like, we talk about investing, right? Like, a lot of people in sales that make money start blowing their money. Everyone makes dumb financial decisions at first, but the secret is to live on less than you make and invest as much as you can, right? And
It is, which
one
is
of my
easier
friends,
said than done as you make.
true, lifestyle inflation, right? And your friends, seeing your friends buy nicer cars and stuff. But my friend Jeff Mendez says, the best investment is in real estate, but the best real estate's in between your ears, like investing in yourself. And you do that at a high level. You've done that early on in your career. You didn't know how to be a successful agent. You went to somebody that could teach you. So talk to us about that. Like, how have you done that and how have you applied that and how has it helped you?
Well, obviously, like this is the name of your podcast, proximity is power. There's a substantial amount of power in the proximity of who you get around. And so Tony always teaches these three things with mastery because everything is about mastery. What am I mastering? And there's repetition, repeating the input. There's full immersion. And immersion is like when we went to Whistler, right? That's 5 days there. That's like a growth spurt that you get to have when you do an immersive experience in a training event like that. And then there's the third is modeling proven practices that have shown to work. And so the fastest way I've learned to do that is to get in proximity with people that have, and I call this the gauge of proximity. The first is find someone that has the physical results and the physical outcomes that I want to have and get around them, right? So, for example, one of the major reasons why I keep going back to Tony year over year over year, my first event with him was 2015, is because honestly, he's got a relationship that I desired to have, and he's got the business, he's got the look around the health and vitality. And there's other really successful people that I could spend my time with, but they don't have that type of relationship that I truly
Mm,
desire. Like he's got all of the parts that I want, and so I spend more time around that person. It's like, okay, if you wanted to get really, really healthy and fit, you're not going to go to a fat person and have them mentor you.
yeah.
I'll see these people, like let's take Andy Frisella, for example, who's a really powerful influencer and successful person on every level. And he comes with this intensity that's constant warrior mode that I actually don't want to have. There's no right or wrong with it. I want more of this calmer approach that I see Tony bringing. And so I can develop calmness, calm presence, right, into my life. And I'm not saying I don't even know idea what Andy Frisella's relationship is like, so I can't judge on that. But I do know what Tony's is because I've been around Sage. I've heard them
Hmm.
talk about these things and these different seasons of the relationship and how to go through them. And so that's important to me. Number one is I get into proximity with people that have the physical results The second thing that is super important for me is it has to do with me is who I choose to show up as with my coachability index. Am I level 10 coachable? Am I level 10 willing to change the way I was doing it to do it a different way because the way I was doing it has got me to where I'm at. But if I want to get where I'm going, I have to adapt, I have to maximize, I have to optimize something, I have to adjust. The third, which I think is probably the one of the most important pieces, is what I call the believability index. And focusing way less on how I'm going to do it, because if I focus on the how, it can become very confusing and overwhelming and can crush my energy. But if I focus on the importance of it, like what's important about this for me in my life, so I focus on that why, I flood it with certainty, I feel better. And when I feel better, I act better. And then the fourth are the really just focusing on the levels of consciousness through fundamentals. So, for an example, is every person starts at what's called unconscious incompetence, where they just are oblivious and they have no idea what's going on. But then something triggers and they become aware that they don't know a specific thing, so they become consciously incompetent. I don't know what I don't know, but I know I don't know something. So then they go get a mentor, a coach, they take a class, they do something, and they develop what's called conscious competence. And it's like a baby when it first starts to walk. It's not running a marathon. It's all wiggly, falls down quite a bit, so you're not perfect at it. And that's kind of the phase where most people quit. It's because they think they're going to be able to start walking today and run a marathon tomorrow, and it doesn't work. It takes time to build up the skills and the strength and all of that. And so with time, though, through repetition and mastery, it becomes unconscious competence, where it just becomes automatically that you are successful in that thing. And then the cycle starts all over again. So I just focus on really those kind of four pieces of proximity in my development and keep running it over and over again, the same playbook.
Wow, that was so much gold. I love it. So the three things that you talk about: first, full immersion. And I think full immersion is key because like Tony's example is like if you want to learn Italian and you go to a week, I mean, you go once a week for 3 years, you're not going to learn it. But if he drops you off in Italy for 3 months, you'll come back and you'll have it down. And then repetition, like you said with the scripts, like you have to practice it over and over and over again to get it mastered. And then third, like model proven practices of people that have done it. And
Yes.
like, no, so gold. And that's why I'm a big Tony Robbins fan too, because you and I both know there's a lot of people that preach and like think they're the best at whatever. And maybe some of them are, but like what I love about Tony is, yeah, I look up to him in not just finance and business, but like relationships, health, spirituality, like how he contributes and like leads with his heart and like cares about people. And so like I think everyone's life can be an example or warning, but Tony's an example in a lot of different areas. And there are some people out there who I look up to in one area, but not at all in the other categories, you know? So how did you get introduced to Tony Robbins?
Actually, early in my real estate career, this one of my first assistants that I hired, a kid named Garrett Allred, he put this thing up on his vision board that was go to Tony's UPW event. And I had never heard of it before.
Hmm.
And so he started talking to me about it. He actually thing over here like Power Talks or something. I think
Huh?
these original CDs that I borrowed from him, and I just like started listening to him, and it was empowering. And so then I read his book, Awaken the Giant Within. Then I bought a ticket to go to UPW October 2015, and then I went back. I think I went. I can't remember back, or I bought a ticket to Date with Destiny or something. Then I ended up at Date with Destiny, and then from there Business Mastery, and then I did all of Mastery University, and then then I've done Platinum 3 years now, so I just kept buying Platinum.
Wow. Which
Yeah,
for those of you guys that don't know, Platinum's like over 100K a year, like with all the trips and everything. It's a big investment. 100K per year he's putting back into himself. How has that transformed you? I mean, I don't even know if you
a
can
lot.
quantify it, but
I mean, it's like I look at the relationship I'm in now. It's because of what I learned with Tony. Because I was used to be in a different relationship that wasn't the relationship I
mm,
wanted or that she wanted. How I invest my money is like that's like for most people when they invest, they have no rhyme or reason. Like I now have a plan going forward on where my money goes. Not to say I don't ever get emotionally, like I have been pretty like, oh fuck, the last couple of days, right? But overall, I know what the plan is. I know how to balance the portfolio. I know what the goal is. So for me, it's
Mm.
been impactful in all areas of my life.
Yeah, dude, I can't recommend someone going to a Tony Robbins event enough. Like, changed my life in almost every area. How about this last one? We just went to Platt Finance in Canada last month. What were your biggest takeaways or breakthroughs that you had at Platt Finance?
So two things, well, actually three things. One I think was day one when there was some girl, she was like 34, talking about how she felt like she was behind. And then Mike Posner, who's 36, he shared about some of his fears. So one of his fears was that, or lies he was telling himself, is that when the time happens, he'd get into the relationship. But what he really did want was he wanted a family. And I remember talking that similar way to myself years and years ago. And now I look at where my family is. And my family is one of the most special things to my life, with my relationship with Elise and the girls and Braxton. And it's such, so like that was like awesome to validate the amount of work I've been doing in my life to get where I'm at was super cool, just moment for me. The second takeaway was single family real estate over the next decade is not the investment I want to be in. Like high interest rates, low appreciation, it's like not going to make me a ton of money. So
Hmm.
right now working to liquidate my single family part of my portfolio.
Wow. Are you gonna sell it all?
Yeah, everything except for my primary and my secondary residence.
Really?
All my like rentals, or I'm selling them in the single family space.
Wow. Have you listed most of them already?
I'm going to list them at one at a time because they're all in this very similar area, so I don't want to compete.
Okay. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I started the demo yesterday on one of them. So I got my crew in there just to rehab what it is, because it's been rented for like 10 years and it's had no work on it. So
Hmm.
we're gonna put some money into that, make it look nice, and I'll probably list it April 1st is the goal on that one. So selling all those, and I'm even paying the capital gains tax on those. Like that's like the big heartache is like,
Yeah, you're not even 1031ing it.
no, I'm
You're
not
you're
even
just
1031 because it's I don't have quite enough equity to go into like a bigger GP deal, but
hmm.
so I'm going to move a lot of that into private equity, which is the third thing. It's like that's my biggest focus, is expanding my private equity portion of my investment portfolio. Specifically, I want to get into energy and sports. Obviously, you learned about some of that stuff and you can see why. For me, I get into those two things, that will make 8 asset classes for me, which would really reduce my risk and exposure a lot this next 5 to 10 years, which I think is important. So that would be the thing, is single families out and diversifying out of there. I still think multifamily is going to be really good if you can have the right private equity partner that you're in GP, that your operator you're working with. But even I think multifamily can be very risky if you're already in some stuff, because there's a lot of bad operators out there. You got to have the right operator.
Yeah, because the wrong operator totally F up the deal.
Yeah.
Bad management, lots of vacancy. No, dude, that's super interesting because I remember sitting next to you and he's talking about how if you have 8 to 12 uncorrelated investments, you reduce your risk by 80% and improve your upside. I mean, you were looking at our portfolios being like, holy shit, we're way too heavy in real estate.
Yeah. And I have been, I used to be like 95% real estate.
Yeah.
I'm at like
Wow.
42% now. After these
Yeah.
moves, I'll probably be somewhere closer to 30% real estate.
Hmm.
So my goal is
Wow.
30% real estate, 20% stock and equity, 20% Bitcoin, and
Hmm.
20% private equity, and then
Hmm.
10% cash and cash value is what I'm.
Wow.
I mean, that'll kind of like, I got like 2% in gold and silver,
Yeah.
but then I want to have majority of it in cash value or cash
Huh.
equivalents, and then very little in cash.
So what real estate are you bullish on or keeping?
Well, I'm keeping my primary residence and my secondary residence because both of those are locked in at like around a 3% interest rate. And they're
Mm.
very secure investments. Now, I'm not going to make what I would make on like a private equity deal, but like part of what I try to keep is a good percentage in the security bucket. And so those I think are very too secure, low interest rate, low debt burden, and I use them for lifestyle, right? So those are really good.
Gotcha.
And
So,
then I've got multifamily investments I'm definitely keeping as well. And I have one commercial, which is my studio. So I own my studio, the physical building.
huh.
And so our studio is a big part of our business, and I rent it back to one of my companies. So like it's just an easy peasy deal.
So how come would you recommend, or I guess why are you selling your real estate, your single family, if you have a good interest rate, or do you not have good interest rates on those?
So on those ones, I don't. I actually done because those are owned with a commercial policy on them, commercial financing.
Mm,
And so how
mm,
commercial deals work is you can lock in a rate for 5 years and then it goes up. So rates are going up on April 1st to 7.25%.
wow. And what
So
were they at before?
they were at 5.25, which was doable,
Yeah,
five and a
a
quarter.
lot better.
But the real thing I'm looking at too is that okay, if I've got 100,000 in equity in those deals, I'm only getting 4 or 5% return on my cash.
Yeah,
I'm actually losing buying power by staying in those deals when we look at inflation. I think the real number has been over the last 5 years, 15% per year. But let's put it even to more simple terms. 10 years ago, $1 million only it was the same as $800,000 10 years ago, right? So if you go clear back to 1995, 480 what I could buy for 480 grand in 1995 cost me $1 million today. So that's how much buying power the dollar's losing. So really, when I look at investing, it's like how do I actually preserve buying power of the US dollar?
hmm.
And I'm just not doing it with single family real estate.
So if you had locked in rates, you wouldn't probably sell.
That would be so tough, right? Because
Yeah.
that equity, I would be less likely to sell, but I don't know that I wouldn't.
Yeah, that's something interesting I've been thinking about because when I try to buy a property, I look for a certain cash on cash return. But nobody talks about cash on equity after you buy it.
Correct.
And I'm like, holy crap, like, okay, my cash on cash was good, but now that my equity is doubled or tripled, like, and I'm getting the same cash flow, barely more, because rents have gone up. I'm like, whoa, that's actually, it'd probably be better off in a money market at this point.
Right.
So,
Well, that's it. Like I have three business entities that I have operating capital in for my main business. And
uh,
I negotiated a deal with the bank where if I moved it to there instead of another bank, I get 4.5% just on my cash sitting there, my operating capital.
wow.
So it's like I'm better off to just sell those homes and
Mm-hmm.
put the cash in the bank and I make almost as much with less risk, especially too, you're seeing values come down on real estate now. And I think that's going to continue.
Hmm.
Like those properties were worth like 230,000 at the peak in 2023. I'll be lucky to get 190 for them now, right? So you look
Hmm.
at that's $40,000 drop on each property that I own. That's like 10 or so percent, almost 20% drop.
Wow. Yeah, really interesting. That's cool. I'm happy to see you making moves already from Flat Finance. It's really cool. Last couple of questions. Want to be respectful of your time and everyone's time. 3, 2, 1 pivot. What are 3 books that have impacted you the most and why? 2 people and 1 quote.
Three books. The very first book was definitely How to Win Friends and Influence People, simply because it was the first
Classic.
book I read, and it opened my mind that was the first book that said, "Hey, you can do things differently and get different results. Like you don't have to just take what's given to you. It doesn't happen to
Hmm.
you; it happens for me." So that book was super powerful. Another book that has been extremely powerful over the years is a book called Ask and It Is Given. I read that one in 2012. And that was where I realized that I could have set intentions and miracles could happen in my life. That was a big one.
Hmm.
The power of manifesting for sure. I think the third book that's probably, I have so many books that are super impactful. I think the third book that's probably one of the most impactful. A book like The Power of the Subconscious Mind or Magic of Thinking Big, Magic of Believing, Psycho Cybernetics, those type of books. Like if you could wrap that into one book, the concept of reading these books about the power of the subconscious mind, those have been really impactful for me over the last 15 years for sure, 15 to 20.
Dude, I love all 4 of those. Psycho Cybernetics. Dude, they're kind of like the Joe Dispenza books too. Breaking the habit of being yourself.
I would say this, I'm going to have one more book that I read
Yeah.
since I went to Abu Dhabi last October, and it's called The Four Sacred Secrets. It's probably Joe Dispenza simplified. So
Mm,
Joe Dispenza teaches really great stuff, but it's very complex with the science and all the stuff. This
hmm.
book is written by Prithaji and Krishnaji that are from the oneness group of Ecom that Tony talks about, that they went to when Sage had like motion sickness from the helicopter.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So it's their group that the managers of that company now, they're the ones that wrote that book. And it's so simple. In fact, me and Elise are going here at the end of the month to a 5-day meditation retreat with them. So I'm super freaking pumped with that.
Wow. That you'll have to tell me about that. It's called the Four Sacred Secrets.
Four Sacred Secrets. Yeah.
Wow, I haven't read
And
that
it's a
or
cool
asked,
book how they
and
wrote
it's
it
given.
because you have like 15 different meditations you do while you throughout the book as well. So
Wow.
you're reading and then they have you do a meditation and you read. It's probably one of the best books at quickly calming my nervous system and relaxing the fears that come up for me.
Wow. That's really cool. And then two people and one quote.
Two people, Tony Robbins for sure, percent, probably the most impactful human in my life. And then another guy named Harv Eker. He wrote a book called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. I've done a lot of mentorship with him. Super, super great person. And
Heck
then
yeah.
one, I got several quotes, but I think one simple quote for me is, "I'm always here." And that doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but I think there used to be this fear for me, and I think a lot of people resonate, is the fear of not being enough. And if I'm not enough, I'm not lovable. I actually don't have that fear. I have the fear of losing the love that I found. And so if there was a phase of my life that, okay, from my girls or from Elise, that I only could have love from them. But what they really did to me is they unlocked that love inside of me. And so it's always here. So I'm always here is just like this phrase for me. I've got it tattooed on my neck over here. It's just a phrase for me that I'm always here. No matter what, I'm always here. And that's where the love is. I just
I
have to,
love that. No, that's really cool. Those are the two biggest fears, like the fear of not being enough and the fear of not being loved.
yeah.
So I'm sure everyone, I know I can relate.
And I bet, like, because you're in a relationship, and I bet
Uh-huh.
that relationship is ignited in you an amazing love. And you don't have kids yet, do you?
We have one on the way in May.
So you'll feel a whole other
Crazy.
level unlock once you have your baby. And so the fear kind of transmutates into the fear of losing that love that
Hmm.
you've felt.
Wow. That's really cool. Last question, Colton. If you had the world's attention for 1 or 2 minutes, what would you want them to know?
Geez, there's so many things I'd want them to know, but I think the very simple thing is like, look, everything turns out okay. And this world goes through cycles. We're in a very interesting cycle right now that can feel very uncertain. And I think if you can just work hard and be kind and remember that everyone's doing their best and to not take everything so serious. It's like a negotiation. You have to care, but not that much.
Amen. Really good. Dude, where can people find you, man?
The best way is Instagram, Instagram.com/the WGR.
Heck yeah. Go follow Colton. He's a stud, especially if you're in real estate or want to get into real estate. He's the guy to follow. Super cool to watch what you're building. Rooting for you for sure. And dude, thanks again for coming on the podcast. I know how busy you are, and I really, really appreciate it. So,
Appreciate you. Thank you.
everyone, thanks for listening. And until next time, peace.